Welcome to RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderHD. You're going to follow me on Twitter. And it's Tuesday, June 11th. We got a big 12-game slate on tap for MLB today. We'll be talking about that. And hit that thumbs up button. Anyway, in the door. You know how much I like the thummy thumbs. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. We got the Grinders Live in crunch time later today. I don't see anything on the weather front that I don't think we have to be worried about, but we do have a very big slate. And when we have a big slate, we need to get the big guns in here. The proprietor of the Bat X projections, which are the main projections that I use to play DFS as well as sports betting. And that has been going pretty damn well for me. It's Derek CARTY. You can follow him at Derek CARTY on Twitter. And so far this season, Derek with the bat, normal sports betting, right? As opposed to I did Prize Picks and Underdog a lot for the past 2 seasons with the bat. A little over like a 6-ish% ROI, which with my volume is like a nice little side income. Yeah,
no, that's great. I'm very happy to hear it.
Right, I'm giving you the platform to pump up. You know, I always say when you come on my show, I do hard to promote your stuff, and in the back of my head, I'm like, I want less people. I want less people to wake up early and try to get the numbers before they move. But I don't know. I always have to share what I use because people ask and everything. So I have to be honest. I don't get a kickback. I don't get anything. So check out those bat projections over at RotoGrinders. You could still get like an annual, right? CARTY. It costs like what is it cost? I mean, I'm assuming, CARTY, that even for the rest of the season, right? We're only 2 months in, so you still got like most of June, most of July, like July, August, and September. That's 4 months. So I'm assuming that like the 4-month price is a little bit cheaper, so probably like around maybe like $4,000 or something like that. Like that would be like cheap enough that you're prorating it a bit. So like 4,000, right? It got to be somewhere around there, right?
It seems like a reasonable number, yeah.
4,000, right?
No, you're able to get in a lot cheaper than that, which you always tell me is way too cheap, and it is. But yeah, it's been great. I'm super biased because I created it, but I think it's great. People do well. I do well, and yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay, so we got a big slate, and we don't have that much time to talk about it. You got to get out of here. But thanks for spending your time with me in the morning. 12-game slate. Obviously, this is a first look. I mean, you're going to get all the detail later today on Grinders Live and Crunch Time. From what I can tell right now, this seems like a really wide open slate. Like, I think from a hitting perspective, it's 12 games. I mean, I could see playing half the teams on this slate are reasonable when comparing projection versus ownership. Pitching wise, I think there may be 3 kind of higher end options. I mean, no one's that other than Wheeler. I don't think anyone's that expensive. But from a projection standpoint, I think maybe 3 stand out. But then after those 3, you still have some pitchers with upside that have decent raw projections. And then we have a lot of like cheap stuff that like you may not feel comfortable with, but there are options on this slate where we got some expensive stacks that I'm not necessarily that. I mean, am I scared of some of these high-end options? I guess. But if this is a slate where one of the high-end options doesn't score like 30 fantasy points, like these double, dinky-do type of pitching lineups where you're paying 2 cheap pitchers and then paying up for like 2 expensive stacks, I think are totally viable. But would you consider the top end raw projection on this slate to be Zach Wheeler, Brian Wu, and Paul Skeens?
I would, yeah. Those are the clear top 3. But like you said, there are quite a few guys after them that look really good, especially considering price. Some of them are really cheap. If one of these guys, Wu, Wheeler, Skeens, doesn't explode, if you get a 20 out of Tyler McGill or, Drew Thorpe or whatever, like you could be in good shape.
My question comes in with these three pitchers. I think I feel the most comfortable with those three. I think they all have a wart on them. To give a negative, I mean, there's no pitcher that's healthy this year that you look at and go, I'm gonna lock him in no matter what, and I don't care what the price is.
Yeah.
Wheeler at 10-5. He's in Boston facing Boston. I don't mind the matchup. I love his leash. I mean, he's the high. I mean, can he pitch 110 pitches? Absolutely. That's a checkbox I love, especially in GPPs. But I don't know if he's like a 12 strikeout pitcher anymore. Like he's someone that could put up a double-digit K rate. Then you have Skeens, who I think has that upside, but because he's a rookie, probably a lot more variance in there. I like the matchup against the Cardinals. And then Brian Wu, the bat has caught up to Brian Wu. I can tell you that because Brian Wu, the pitch count thing is just on a slate when there's 24 pitchers on a slate, and I know he's facing the White Sox, which is obviously a great matchup. Just like Brian Wu is the type of person where it's like I don't play him, and then I'm like he can't do it again to me. And then next thing you know, I look, it's the fourth inning, and he's only at like 52 pitches, and I go, how does this guy do it? Because it's not like he's efficient, and he still comes out after like 6 innings, even if he's only like pitched like 74 pitches.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
His projection is it literally is the highest raw point projection in the bat right now over Wheeler, and he's 1,600 cheaper. Can you sell me on? Can you assuage or dissuade my Wu bias that like is he just really that efficient? Is he just someone that is just he throws the ball over the plate and he gets swinging strikes? So a lot of times he's only pitching 2 or 3 pitches to each batter, and with the White Sox hitting, I mean those could all be swings and misses.
Yeah, I mean he's not that efficient. You look right now at what he's done in his 6 starts this year, like he's barely walked anybody. He's barely given up any hits. And so you're going to be super efficient when you're not doing those things. When you get a hit,
based on this projection, you act as if like the regression is like, no, this is kind of like closer to who he is than him being just purely lucky.
So it's not purely luck. I mean, to the extent that he's done it, he's gotten lucky, but he's still a good pitcher. He does have good control. He does profile as a guy with a lower BABIP than normal. And the matchup is obviously fantastic here against the White Sox in Seattle. The problem is kind of that leash where he hasn't been allowed to throw a lot of pitches. He's only gone over 80 pitches once. And part of that could just be because, well, he hit 6 innings and, he's coming off injury and they're like, we're going to be careful with him and we're just going to pull him here, regardless. So if, it's possible they let him go 6 innings again today and he throws 95 pitches to get there and he still throws 6 innings. But there's uncertainty with what his leash and what the rules with him actually are.
But would you rather play him for a $1,600 discount over Wheeler if you could only play one pitcher, given the fact that we do have some fairly expensive stacks that we may want to play today?
Yeah. I think in a vacuum, I like Wu more than Wheeler. I think Wheeler probably has the higher upside. You have to pay for it, obviously, but I like Wu a lot today. So
let's talk about some of these like as Cheese would call them, the cheap nonsense. And a lot of times the cheap nonsense projects well because, well, you just take a look at who they're facing. Like this baseball has almost become like a game of the haves and the have-nots, closer to like what the NBA is. Like there are teams that are just like, yeah, this season's a lost cause. So have fun, right? Like we have Louis Varland for $6K on the Twins pitching in Minnesota against Colorado, we have Randy Vasquez at 5,600 in San Diego pitching against Oakland. We got Tyler McGill, 7,300 for the Mets in Citi Field against the Marlins. We even have Miles Mikolas, 6,500 facing the Pirates. And we also have Drew Thorpe, a little bit more expensive, 7,700, but facing the strikeout heavy Seattle Mariners. I mean, all these guys have to be. I mean, I typically throw people into buckets. I think the clear first bucket is Woo, Skeens, and Wheeler. But do all these guys go in the second bucket? I mean, if price wasn't considered, like I know the difference between 7,700 and 5,600 is 1,900, but we have to kind of all consider these cheap pitchers. You could always find some value bat that saves you 2,000 in some stack where you're playing like the eighth hitter or something. All these guys project very well for their price. What I mean is who has more up, like, to me, like I consider like Miles Mikolas as like the guy that's like, yeah, against the Pirates, has the longest leash. He'll get me 15 points, but am I getting 8 strikeouts out of Mikolas? Probably not. How about the rest of these guys?
Yeah, I would agree. They're kind of all in that same bucket for similar reasons. Varland's the guy I like the most, just because he's young, stuff is pretty good. Upside against the Rockies is really high. Obviously, there's question marks with him too, but I like the upside on Varland. And I mean, Drew Thorpe is supposed to have great stuff, and obviously Seattle strikes out, so I think the upside on him is going to be pretty big. But honestly, if any of these guys finish with 25 points, I wouldn't be surprised. Like they all have that.
Right. I mean, picture 6 innings, 6 strikeouts, 1 earned run, 4 hits or something like, and a win. And that's 20 points. I mean, they're obviously all in position to even get the win, right? They're probably the teams that are favored to win the games. That opposing teams have, 3.5 type of, implied run totals. I don't know about you, but I'm much more willing today to just screw Wheeler, screw Skeens, screw Woo, and play some of these 2 cheap pitcher options for 2 reasons. One, I feel like the pitching ownership is not going to get out of hand. Like, I think the 3 that in the first bucket are going to be the most owned, but I don't think anyone's going to be more than 35% owned, 30% owned. And as long as one of them, like if Zach Wheeler is 30% owned and he get 24 points, which is totally respectable, right? And a pretty decent score. I'm not sure if you're going to need him, right?
Yeah.
Like, it would be nice to have, but it also means that you don't have some expensive stacks. And Paul Skeens, if all these guys, if Woo, Skeens, and Wheeler put less than 25 up, I feel like it's just unneeded. And then also on top of it, we got 12 games today. So it's quite possible that one of these other pitchers that are mid-range or a little overpriced or whatever, they put up 35 fantasy points, but they're 2% owned. Like the lineups that have them have to be perfect on a 12-game slate with so many options that if you don't get the stacks right, it doesn't matter that you have a 35-point pitcher. We see a lot of times in large field contests on these slates that the stack wins more than the pitching, right? Unless the pitcher is extremely high owned, that it's much more important to get the 5% owned stack that scored 14 runs than get perfect on you. You have to get reasonable amount of points at pitching, but you don't have to be perfect at pitching. And I don't think guys like Kikuchi or Ronald Blanco or I'm just looking Cutter Crawford or Jordan Hicks or Lazard. I don't think any of these guys are getting really more than 5% ownership, if that. But if you were to take a shot on one of these types of single digit own type of pitchers that aren't cheap, but aren't super expensive, does any of them stand out? I mean, I played Jordan Hicks's last start. He did pretty well, but I'm not a big fan of targeting the Astros on a 12-game slate.
Yeah, I think Luzardo probably, but I think Hicks is probably right there too. I don't think any of the others I would have a lot of interest in today.
Kikuchi against the Brewers. I mean, he is up.
Yeah.
I mean, is it the type of thing like to me at 5% ownership and stuff like that? I want to get pitchers that like have like strikeout upside. Like if they die, so be it. We're playing GPPs, but like I don't want to be in the business of like playing Jordan Montgomery at 8,000 against the Angels
Yeah.
and him to strike out 3 guys.
No, I agree. That's why I think Luzardo probably has the most upside of that group. I guess Kikuchi does. You're really overpaying for him though. Like I'd much rather just save the 1,000 and play Luzardo or Hicks at that point.
SimLabs, as of right now, and what I always say about SimLabs is that at 11 in the morning, it doesn't really matter that much because lineups will change. You know, some guy that was priced at 2,600 shows up leading off for some team, and it really changes everything around. The most under-owned pitcher on the slate, according to SimLabs, is Dane Dunning, 7,900, facing the Dodgers. And I just put shrug it like me. It's just like shrug emoji. All right. I mean, I go to SimLabs right here. Oh no, this okay. No, the most over. Okay, sorry.
Oh,
Most
over. Okay, okay, that makes more sense.
I thought he was the most under owned. No, actually, the most over. We have him. We have him at like 10% owned, and I don't see anyone playing Dane Dunning against the Dodgers. So like, I'm not sure if he'll be over owned. But that's a good thing I checked because I was under the impression he was like the most under owned, and I'm like, I was going to ask
Maybe
you.
you're telling us like if anyone plays Dane Dunning at all, it's terrible. Like his ownership should be -6, and it's going to be like 2.
Could be. I mean, I played Dane Dunning more than most people, but most of the time because people don't want to play him, and I'm not going to play him against the Dodgers on this.
I mean, in this matchup, like Dane Dunning,
right.
there are times to play him, but Dane Dunning against the Dodgers here is probably not where you want to do it.
Is there anyone else even worth considering? I mean, on this, I mean, any of these guys could obviously. I mean, JP Sears, no. I mean, he's good against in good matchups. James Paxton is what happened to him?
I mean, he's just not the same guy. He's dealt with so many injuries over the years. His stuff this year is like way down. James Paxton is not good.
And also, what happened? I know you're not going to play him versus the Yankees, but what happened to Brady Singer?
He was a guy I think people got a little excited about without a great reason to. He's also only a second start back from injury, so he's going to have a pitch count cap of 85s. I think where the bat thinks his max is. So there's no ceiling on Singer. I don't think he's playable at all.
Okay, so we don't have that much time today, and we got a lot of stacks to cover. I don't know, Carty, you've been around since we switched the format, right? We do tiers for the stacks, like especially early in the morning, where we don't really want to talk about individual hitters when we don't know what necessarily the lineups are going to be. But
you got to give them like funny names though, like
no, that's see the thing is that Dean only does that on Grinders Live because a lot of times it's like an hour and 15 minutes and you're talking about a 5-game slate, and at some point there's just nothing less to, like, unless you're repeating yourself over and over again. You got to spice it up a little bit more. Here in the morning, we don't have like a time frame. This show could literally be 18 minutes if we wanted it to be. So like I don't need to filibuster time or anything. So what I use for this tier list a lot of times as a guide is the Bat X Stacks page, which you could get if you're a Bat subscriber, and it gives you a nice little
tier system out of that today. It's like everyone's like the same.
Right. Well, that's the point that I was making in the beginning of the show of like, this is kind of open when it comes to stacking like this. I don't think there's going to be any stack that's going to be like over 10% owned as a stack, as a team.
Yeah.
So kind of in these scenarios, especially when there may not even be a pitcher that's over 30% owned, I'm less like when we do these tier lists, I always say that it's adjusted for ownership, meaning that if there's going to be a 50% owned stack on this slate, like the stack would be like at minimum, it would be almost a D stack. It may not be an F stack because they project well, but why would you play a 50% owned stack on this slate?
Right.
I don't think there's any stack that's like it's almost like I almost could disregard ownership. As long as I probably wouldn't play like the super chalk altogether. Like playing a Wheeler Woo, a Wheeler Skeens lineup with, you know, a hitter that's like 15-20% owned also. Like, but I'm not even sure if you're gonna even need to even make those types of combinations. So this tier list may actually be a little bit easier because I'm much more likely to just play the best projected teams and
Yeah.
don't necessarily care about ownership as much. So let's start at the top. From a point per dollar perspective, that's where I start. We talked about Jordan Montgomery. How about the Angels against Jordan Montgomery? I know they're a good point per dollar value, and I know that you could play like Wheeler Skeens in that type of lineup, but I don't know about you. I'm not in the habit of stacking against Jordan Montgomery because although Jordan Montgomery doesn't strike anyone out, he also, I don't know, a lefty against the Angels. I'm just not.
Yeah. But
Are they going to be the highest? Like we're talking about stacks on this tier list, 5 guys from one team for ceiling, meaning are they going to be the top stack of the entire night? I just don't think it's the Angels. I don't think it's even close.
I don't think so either.
How about we talked about Paxton? How about the Rangers against Paxton? I'm almost more willing to play the Rangers against Paxton than the Angels against Montgomery.
Yeah, I would be too. I think they'd probably be like a C for me. Yeah.
How about stacking the Marlins against McGill?
That's probably a D. I mean, they're cheap enough, but it's not a great matchup.
Right. They're only not in the F because they're too cheap. They're too cheap to make the F tier, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, here's a little bit better hitting team. I don't mind the matchup, although I don't think he necessarily gets blown up that often. It's the Kansas City Royals against Marcus Stroman.
Yeah, they're like a C for me, I guess.
Yeah, I think they're playable, but not like I'm not excited to.
Yeah.
Right in the middle. Here's a team that I rarely play. I don't think there's a great spot either. Even though no one's going to play Ronel Blanco today at his price, you're not going to get leverage. The San Francisco Giants. I mean, I almost think this the Giants against Blanco. I almost would put in the F tier.
I'm okay doing that.
Are they more?
Especially if Chapman's out again today. Yeah, like it's. I think they're one of the worst today. They're cheap enough. You can put them in a D, but if you want to put them in F, I'm not gonna tell you not to.
Well, I mean, here's the question: would you rather play? See, here's the difference. So, from a projection standpoint, here are 2 teams that project similar price, but the pitcher they're facing is the Diamond. We have the Giants against Blanco, or the A's against Vasquez, and I make the case that from a projection standpoint, they're similar. But if Vasquez is actually going to probably be double, at least 10% owned, 50% owned, that at least when the A's do well, I'm knocking out like 10%, 50% of other lineups. No one's playing Blanco. So, like, given the choice, I know that Giants are technically a better team than the A's, but from a DFS perspective for your contest, I'd much rather play the A's against a somewhat owned pitcher than a non-owned pitcher.
No, totally agree.
Okay, how about Jose Suarez? We haven't talked about him. I think how about the Diamondbacks? The Diamondbacks are fairly affordable against Jose Suarez, and I never mind attacking Suarez. I mean, he could walk 4 guys in an inning sometimes.
Yeah, he's coming out of the bullpen. He's probably not going to be super stretched out, but the Diamondbacks are kind of one of these teams that straddle the line of like good point per dollar and pretty good, just like raw point ceiling overall. I think they're at least a B.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't put them in the A tier. I think with the cheap pitching that we have today, that the expensive stacks that have a much higher projection are much more A tier than on other slates where like there's no value and it's kind of like in order to play the expensive stack, you got to really take a shot on some garbage like 9-point projected pitcher. I think the pitching is good enough today.
And even the expensive stuff today isn't that expensive, and there's lots of ways to get it. So I totally agree
Right.
with you.
And there's also lots of options. So it's not like there's one expensive stack or two that like everyone is going to play. It's more
Yeah.
like there's like 6 of them. And
Yep.
I'm not sure I'm not sure if any of them are going to be like head above, shoulders above each of them. Going down the list, I typically don't stack against Mikolas, but the Pirates, I mean, are they F also? Are they D?
I think
They're low.
I think probably D. I don't think I'd put them F, but I mean, it's not really a spot I'm excited about. They're cheap enough. Michaelis doesn't really get blown up. D for me, I guess.
How about the Brewers against Kikuchi?
They're probably D for me also. I mean, they're fine, but I mean, Kikuchi is one of the better pitchers on the slate. You're not
I
getting these
wouldn't
guys.
mind one, like, to me, like the Brewers are a type of team where as a stack, I think maybe they're even F as a stack. But I wouldn't mind playing, like a Reese
Like a
Hoskins.
one-off, yeah.
Right, like a power one-off because the Kikuchi could give up power. Because remember, the tier list is more about stacks than about one-off.
Right.
I just want to
Or
highlight
really
like
a one-off or something like that
right,
works.
right,
I think
exactly,
that's
something like that.
Yeah.
Here's a team that's maybe decently popular. I mean, they always tend to get more ownership than probably they should. The Blue Jays against Carlos Rodriguez.
I'm on team. The Blue Jays are better than everyone thinks they
Well,
are this year.
the bat would agree with you. The bat would agree that George Springer and Vlad Guerrero and Dalton Varsho, the Blue Jays should be better than they are.
Yeah.
And to be fair, Carty, a lot of that I remember, like every year, that's always the case. And then by like August, like if you stayed on board, that whatever teams were projected, like you ended up winning a decent amount of money in July and August when they finally came around to like regressing to their mean.
Yeah, that'll be the Jays this year.
Yeah, but I also but they end. I start calling them the Ponzi scheme, right? It's like it becomes like the Braves are another one. They're just like I just play the Braves. They project well and they disappoint me, and it's just like I know at some point. I know. It doesn't matter what the graph looks like. It's coming around. And if you've been playing this game long enough, especially with your projections, you're more often right than not. And also the other way works also. Teams that look great in the beginning, right? And it's like, oh, why is the bat so down on this team? They've been hitting so well. And then eventually they just fall off a cliff. I think the Padres are another candidate for, the teams that project well and just come on,
definitely.
what's going on?
Yeah.
So where are we putting the Blue Jays? I mean, they're a seat. I mean, they're at least a seat tier.
Yeah, I think they're
maybe a B.
Yeah, borderline BC. I'd probably lean C.
Okay, how about here's a team. This team cannot be an F tier team only because Louis Varland is probably going to be owned 15 to 20%. The Rockies.
Yeah, I mean, just because they're facing Varland and you get some of that leverage, they're at least a D, I guess. I don't think I'd put them higher than that, but I mean, it's not like Louis Varland's great. If the Rockies score 8 or 9 runs here, you wouldn't be surprised.
Right, but on a 12-game slate, I'm not jumping in to go, yeah, I need to play the Rockies on this slate.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams I would like to play before them if I could.
Right. How about the Reds against Tristan McKenzie, who still is pitching? Just he doesn't care whether or not he's really slightly injured.
Yeah, I mean, he's pitching well. Like his all of his numbers don't really look any different than last year, even though supposedly he's pitching injured. Tough to know what to make of him these days, but I think the Reds against him, they're kind of close to they're kind of closer to that top tier. Like I think they're at least a B. I think you could make a case for A. I mean, it's Great American Ballpark. Probably a B for me though.
Okay. Then we have going down the point per dollar list. The top projected team currently on the slate, the Yankees against Brady Singer. Are the thing about the Yankees, Carty, is that their lineup has become very much barbelled. Like, there are guys that do really well and guys that just like don't do anything. So a lot of times, like a 5-man stack isn't as appealing sometimes as you would think. And I mean, I would put them. I mean, I can't put, for that reason I can't put them on the A tier, but at least there's a B tier. But can you tell me what has happened to Anthony Rizzo?
He got old.
So is Anthony Rizzo just not a thing anymore? He's just like he's just.
I mean, he kind of hasn't been for a while. Like, he hasn't been Anthony Rizzo in several years. He's kind of been like, declining, still okay, Anthony Rizzo, and now he might just be like, league average Anthony Rizzo.
Yeah, but I mean, when he's not, he can't even make the Yankees lineup, and guys like Osvaldo Cabrera and
I know,
and even the corpse of DJ LeMahieu was playing ahead of him. I mean, it's just that I would look at like this matchup with like Brady Singer, a nice power lefty against him. The question is I'm not sure if Anthony Rizzo is Anthony Rizzo or if he's Joey Gallo.
it's tough to know. When guys fall off a cliff, sometimes they really just fall off. He's not striking out a ton, which makes me think he's probably not like completely washed at this point. Like, he's not Joey Gallo. And Singer does have a wide split, so lefties are going to project really well against him. But I don't know. I kind of like the Yankees today. I'm fine with B. I wouldn't say no to putting them in A, but I get your point about kind of just the construction of that.
Right. I was just asking about Rizzo because you have to let me know. Send me a message when I should stop betting his home run props. And it doesn't matter what the bat says. Just tell me. Just give me a little. I mean, it's not like I bet that much on home run props, but just okay, Anthony Rizzo. Here's another $10 down the drain. Like, here we go. Like, there you go.
I mean, he's one of these guys that you just don't know. Like, the numbers this year don't support it. Like, if he's as bad as he's been this year, then that's it. If he's just fallen off a cliff and this is where he is now, then he's done. You always have to expect some regression, even for older guys, though. And so that's kind of where the bat's at on him. It's like he's not who he used to be, but he's probably not this terrible.
Do you have a similar inbox where I could send my receipts for a refund on George Springer home run bets also? The thing is, CARTY, is like I may bust your balls on those types of things, but also I've hit like plus 1,200 home run bets also that make up for those anyway. So like a lot of times I look at the bat and go, okay, plus 1,000 on this, like it's like this random bird. Like, I don't even understand why, but I just bet on all these things, and then I just look and I go, wow, I can't believe I hit a plus 1,100 on like you get like a Nick Lofton or something, like Adam Frazier, like a guy that hits like Bryce Terang, right? A guy hits like 2 or 3 home runs the entire year, and it's like on a certain day, it's like, oh, okay, I guess I'm taking him plus 1,400. Like, I just have to hit one of these every like 2 weeks or something. And yeah, I've been profitable on those. So although I bust your balls on the gutless people, the people that are like the corpse of this guy's home run, like where it's not coming. Here's a team that I think is an A tier team. The Padres against JP Sears.
Yeah, I agree.
But just to be clear, I said the Padres are very similar to the Braves, where they're not going to be as owned as they should be. They project very well, and they're going to go out and score about 4 runs. And they'll win, and they'll score like 4 runs or something, right?
I mean, it seems to work that way, but theoretically, they should, on occasion, be scoring 10 runs. Like they have that talent. The matchup today is good. It's one of those teams where it's going to turn around, and they're going to start winning people tournaments.
What has happened to Jurickson Profar? All of a sudden, like at the beginning of the season, he's like, oh, this is the most like overrated batter there is. And then seems like the results are the complete opposite of that.
Yeah, kind of one of those guys that, just got off to a scorching start and it didn't look real, and he's kind of come back down to earth, right?
But where do I go to submit my Jurickson Profar under hits bets? Is that the same inbox?
Yeah, I lost a lot of those early in the year. Early in the year, it was tough too with the under hits bets because they were pinch hitting for him so much in the first few games. And then once he got on the hot streak, they just stopped doing it. But like, if you were expecting the chance of a pinch hit, it was adding that extra undervalue, and it just wasn't happening because the dude was hitting like 400.
Okay, let's run through. We got tons of more teams. The Mariners against Andrew Thorpe. I don't think Thorpe is going to be as owned as like Varland or Vasquez.
No.
I I put the. I know they have like one offs. Sure, can you play power one offs? But other than that, I think that they're an F tier team.
I think they're an F tier team too.
How about the car? Okay, here's Paul Skeens is going to be owned. The Cardinals against him. I mean, I'm not in the business of picking on Paul Skeens on a 12-game slate. I could. How much leverage do you think there's going to be where it would be worth it? Because naturally they would be an F tier team, but is there enough? Right. Is it enough to put them in it? Like if someone wants to attack leverage purposes, would you rather? Okay, here's the question: who would you rather attack with the leverage stack more? The Cardinals against Skeens, the White Sox against Wu, or the Red Sox against Wheeler?
I mean, it's tough. I don't like any of them, but it's probably the Red Sox against Wheeler for me. But I can see the case for the Cardinals.
So let's put the Red Sox as the D tier team.
Okay.
Let's put the Cardinals as an F, and let's put the Sox as an F also, right? Even though you're getting leverage. Yeah. Like the thing on a 12-game slate is that even if you're getting leverage, they still have to be the top scoring team on the slate. I mean, like, right. like for instance, like Paul Skeens could give up 4 runs in 5 innings and only strike out 6. And yeah, Skeens is dead in the pitcher slot, but it's not like the Cardinals are like, you're not winning anything with 4 runs out of the Cardinals, right? I mean, like, so it's not just like, oh, well, he does bad. It's like, well, he didn't give up 10 runs or anything. Like the Cardinals still didn't make it. How about the Mets against Luzardo?
They're probably like a C. Like I think they're a team that's fine today. I think there's better teams. I think there's worse teams.
Okay, so let's get out one of the other teams that is probably a Met team also, and then focus on like 4 teams that are actually pretty good today. Okay. The Astros against Jordan Hicks. Are they another like Met team? Are they a C, or would you even put them down as like a D tier team?
I might even put them down as an F today. But certainly I wouldn't have them as C.
But I mean, I can't put them in that. I mean, when their lineup, I mean, from a ceiling, I think it's an awful matchup. I think they're overpriced. But you can't tell me that if the Astros, if Altuve and all Alvarez, if all these, I mean, yeah, like, it's just it's one of these things. Like the Yankees can never be an F tier team because like they got Aaron Judge and Juan Soto. I mean, like it doesn't matter how bad
I do think there's a case to be made though that with Tucker hurt, they don't have as much upside.
True, but they're also cheaper.
That's true, but like if you're talking about, could they score a bunch of runs and be the highest scoring, stack on the slate? Like, who are you really excited to stack for them? It's Alvarez, Altuve.
You're not, hey, Carty, you're not excited.
Niner Diaz, I guess.
Jose Abreu, what happened to that guy?
He fell off a cliff.
Okay, so we got 4 teams left. They all project similarly. They're all fairly expensive, similarly priced in a 5-man stack. We got the Dodgers against Dunning, the Twins against Quantrill, the Phillies against Crawford, and the Guardians against Brent Suter. I don't know about you, but I would put. I don't play. I don't know if it's a bias, but I really don't play the Guardians that often. Because like outside of like Naylor and Joe Ram, like it just feels like in order for that stack to really work out for you, especially on a large slate, like it's like singles and doubles and like it's just like you're not getting like 5 home run games out of the Guardians. But it's not like they're gonna be that owned or anything. I mean, I think all these teams are at least B tier teams. I don't think any of these are C tier teams.
Right.
But they're the ones where I would not consider them an A tier team.
Yeah, I'd be fine putting the Guardians B and then the rest of them probably at the A tier.
Okay, so you would put the Dodgers, the Twins, and the Phillies all A tier teams.
I think they're all pretty similar. Yeah, I think they're all pretty much A tier teams for me. Maybe the Twins you could put as a B just because there's the pinch hit risk and there's the, maybe not as much upside with them as like the Dodgers, the Phillies, but yeah,
they do shenanigans all the time. I never know who to stack because it's like is Larnach going to be pinch hit for? Is Miranda going to be like they? And it's not like even it's like predictable even because sometimes they'll like Kepler's pinch hit for. Like why? Like what the hell did you do that for? Right?
Yeah.
I think you get less of that on the Dodgers and the Phillies. To me, I think if I had to choose one stack to play on this slate, I mean, you can't go wrong playing the Dodgers, right? Playing two cheap pitchers and playing the Dodgers. Although at times they've done the thing where, the pitcher gets, gives up 5 earned runs, and then the Dodgers have like 1 home run and a bunch of like singles and doubles, and you're like, yeah, they won 5-2. It's like, well, thanks a lot, Dodgers. Right? The Phillies, to me, the Phillies are like the opposite. The Phillies are like you play the Phillies, and either they score like 12, or they get shut out for no reason. Just like absolutely no reason.
But that's what you want. Like if you can have that kind of variance, that's what you're looking for.
Okay, so we got our tier list here: Padres, Dodgers, Phillies at the top. The do not play at all at any cost is the Giants, the Mariners, the Cardinals, and the White Sox. And then a whole bunch of truthfully, I think in the top 3 tiers, if you wanted to take a shot on the Mets, I don't think anyone's playing the Mets today, but I mean, if you want to take a shot on these teams, would you rather, okay, here's the last question before we get out of here. Would you rather take a shot on the C tier teams, right? So we don't want to make it easy with the D because then you're going to choose obviously the other side. So let's say you could choose to either play the Rangers, the Royals, the Blue Jays, or the Mets. But when you play these teams, you could play Wheeler, Skeens, and Wu, right? So if you play any of those 3 pitchers, the only choices you have for stacks are the C tier stacks. Or would you rather play an A tier stack or even a B if you want to choose so? But you can't play any of those 3 pitchers. Like you have to play 2 other pitchers, whether they be cheap or expensive, it doesn't matter. But you cannot play Wheeler, you cannot play Wu, you cannot play Skeens, but you get to play an A or B tier stack. Which one, if you had one lineup, which one would you rather do?
Honestly, it's the kind of day where the fall off from the top pitchers to those other guys, especially once you consider price, isn't that bad. But it's also the type of day where on the hitting side, like the A tier isn't that far from the C tier. I think I go with the cheaper pitchers and like the Dodgers, but I don't think it's wrong to go the other way.
Right. You don't think it's wrong to play, of course, because look at that C tier. You got the Blue Jays there. Because if you have a choice, if you have the opportunity on a nice Tuesday with good weather to dump more money on the Blue Jays, you got to take it, right?
Yeah.
You've been doing it all year. You got to start putting right.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to play Wheeler, Skeens. You got to play Isaiah Kiner full effort. It's a cheaper part of your stack, right? And you just got to take Vlad and Springer and Bo Bichette. You go, why is he not 5,600? And and you just show up and it feels like it's like you're going in like what's his name, Oliver Twist. The next day, and it's like, give me some more. Can I have some more? Can I have like this? Can I have some more? And then combine that 5-man Blue Jay stack with 3 Padres, right? You got to play 3 Padres for them to be gutless, right? You combine them together. You play Brian Wu, and Brian Wu pitches 5 innings and strikes out 3, and only 62 pitches and comes out for no reason. I mean, like that's
which
the
is
inevitable.
totally possible. Yeah.
Okay, so Cardi, thanks for coming on this morning. Are you gonna be in crunch time later today?
I don't think I'm on today. I'll need to double check the
Okay, but
schedule.
you're on my. You're on. You. I mean, you're most days. A lot of days of the week, you are on crunch time.
Yeah, usually at least 2 or 3 days a week. I don't think today though.
Okay, well, sign up for RotoGrinders Premium, and if you're there, get the Bet X projections. I mean, all the information that we're using, I mean, is essentially the bat projections. You could combine them with the RotoGrinders projections. You could use SimLabs. We got all the data and all the tools for you to be successful in DFS and sports betting and pick 'em, right? We got the pick 'em tool, pick 6 also. So hit that thumbs up button on your way out the door. Give me those thummy thumbs. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. Because I'm always live here, 11 o'clock Eastern, talking about all things you're thinking about in daily fantasy props and pick 'em on RotoGrinders today.